What's going on, everybody? It's Cole Gonzalez, also known as Coreworld, CEO and co-founder of OSSA.AI. But today we are joined by Mr. Anthony. And Anthony and I, we actually go decently far back. We met earlier on this year, which is a long time in the social media space because things move really quickly. But yeah, it's been awesome to meet Anthony. He's been a supporter of OSA. He's crushing it. This guy's 19 years old and he's monetizing on social media. He's not even showing his face. So this is a really exciting one. I know the title is a little bit clickbaity, but I'm really looking forward to Anthony kind of dropping some bombs here and telling us how he's able to make a living without showing his face at 19. It's crazy. Anthony, let the people know who you are.
Of course, man. Of course. So, what's up, everyone? This might be, or probably is, the first time anyone's ever seen my face on social media. So, yeah, this is how I look. And yeah, as Cole mentioned, my name is Anthony. I'm 19 years old. I was born and raised in Sweden. Both my parents are from Lebanon. And yeah, I was born here. They came to Sweden a bit early. Um, and yeah, man, I've been in the social media space for around 16 months now, creating content. But I started my business journey as soon as I turned 18, because I had a realization, which is that right now I'm in control of pretty much everything. You know, when you turn 18, you're basically an adult. You get control of your bank account. You can get your driver's license. You can drink, at least in in Europe. Um, and that's when I decided to start my entrepreneurial journey, which has led me to the spot right here. So I'm super excited to get into all the details.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there for sure. I mean, kind of just let's just take a step back here. So
Yeah,
this is Anthony's account right here. And I just want to reiterate the fact that he's doing this at 19 years old. And I was actually just chatting with Anthony right before this. We were in the studio.
yeah,
And not only, there's two types of creators, right? There's one creator that gets a lot of engagement, a lot of virality, right? A lot of views, but they're not monetizing, right? So there's that type of person. And that's really any age. You could be 17 or you can be 30. And then there's the type of creator that's treating their pages or their following like a business. And Anthony falls into that category at a very young age. So I just really wanted to point that out. And I kind of wanted to before we dive deep into, your process. I know there's a lot of exciting things to cover. The first thing I kind of want to ask is, when did you first start and what inspired you to start creating, right? Because there's a long journey to get to, 300,000 followers.
yeah. So as I mentioned, when I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 18, I was looking into a lot of different business models. Like most kids do, they look at drop shipping. I was looking at selling AI art on Etsy, for example. I was looking at print on demand. I was looking at a lot of these things. And one thing I noticed about all of these business models is you have to create content to market it, unless you have a lot of money to spend on ads, which most beginners, they don't. So that's kind of what led me to start to create content. And I'm still a bit shy. Most people don't know my face on social media. I'm starting to get myself out there a bit more, but I didn't want to show my face. I was kind of embarrassed to create content like a lot of these other people do, because I had didn't really achieve anything in my journey so far. So I decided that I was gonna start to create content faceless. And once you start to think about what type of accounts there are on social media, a lot of them you actually never see the person who is creating the content. There are
Mm.
pages with tens of millions of followers, but nobody knows who's creating the content. So I started to look at different niches, what was trending, and all that stuff. And I found out that AI was trending, so I started to create a lot of content, and content every day pretty much for 16 months, and that's where we are now, 300K. So content is, in my opinion, the source for a lot of businesses, especially when you have no budgets. So that's kind of how I went into the content creation business.
No, yeah, and that's incredible. And there's one thing you kind of said towards the end there, which is the sheer amount of volume. And this is something I recently made a video about, which a lot
Yeah,
of people really don't understand, right? Your content, if I was to scroll all the way down, right, to your original posts, they
yeah.
probably don't look as quality as this. They probably have way
No,
less engagement, right? They
definitely not.
probably just suck, right? And that was
Yeah,
me too. If you scroll down to the bottom of my TikTok, it's so bad. But that's the thing is, like, regardless of all the stuff we're going to dive into today, at the end of the day, it just comes down to volume and repetition. It's like anything. This is the thing I always talk about. And
Yeah.
Anthony is obviously the epitome of that. And I resonate with you on the highest level. Cause when I first started on TikTok, I was posting 6 times a day for the first year. And I didn't even
Yeah.
make $1, bro. I didn't even know you could make money on social media. I just enjoyed making content. So I wish I was like you, and I was like, how do I treat it like a business, right? But hindsight's 2020. But yeah, I just think that's
Of
like a
course.
really important point to touch on is that the success that Anthony's had, before we dive right into this, is a byproduct of consistent content over a long period of time, because that's the only way you can learn, right? And kind of piggybacking
Yeah.
off of that, I want to dive a little bit deeper into your specific strategy of how you ideate for content. And that's like a really valuable thing that I think a lot of people struggle with. And am I lagging here? Let me just make sure I'm not.
No, I think
Okay,
for me everything's good. I can see
okay,
everything
cool.
fine.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know we really align on this, right? But
Yeah.
in terms of creating content, and this is, I really want Anthony to talk about this because it's very valuable. But
Yeah.
there's a specific way that myself and Anthony both think about creating content that is actually simpler than most people think, because you see these views and you see this engagement, right? And you probably think, Anthony's probably he's probably sitting in his room in a journal, like writing everything down and trying to figure it out. But maybe you can talk about kind of your process of getting to the point of having so much content that's obviously resonating with a huge audience.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to you before, there's one sentence in content creation that I think every single person who creates content, they need to have this in the back of their head. And that is, don't reinvent the wheel. Please, the amount of people I see on social media that try and be like some creative geniuses when they create their content, especially for beginners, please don't do this. What I always do is I always look at my competitors. I have like 5 or 10 of them that I look at constantly, like every single day. I look at them and I see, okay, what are they posting? What have they posted in the last week that has performed well? What have they posted in the last month that has performed well? I look at the engagement, I look at the views, I look at the likes, I look at everything and analyze, okay, this post did really well. Why did this post do really well? And sometimes I even look at the post and like, well, I could do this even better. And that's the main concept of creating content. You have to look at what's already working and then put your own little twist on it. It doesn't need to be anything special. It could just be the way you present it. And then you try and improve it if you can. If you can't improve it, then just switch around a few things, switch around a few words, maybe add a different image, all that stuff. And then you post it because you have a proven concept. The concept is super important. You have a proven concept, and then you can change the way you present it. And that's how I would say at least 99% of the content creators go viral nowadays. Copy each other, copy what's good, and then put their own twist on it.
No, yeah, it's incredible. And I want to even dive like a little deeper into that, right? So as I'm
Yeah.
looking at your posts, obviously,
Yes.
you're an AI creator, you're in the AI space. So getting even deeper into that, let's take like a
Yeah.
specific example, right? Looking at
Yeah.
these carousel posts, which for anyone listening, this is known as a carousel post. I'm sure you guys have
Yep.
seen them all over Instagram, right? Super well branded, same colors. I mean, obviously, you've spent a lot of time getting to this point. But
Yeah.
let's say, these posts here, right? So essentially what you're telling me is that you're not just, sitting in the lab trying to figure this out. You're finding
No,
these
no.
ideas, even going as far as like graphics and everything, and you're kind of repurposing what's already getting attention, right?
Yes, exactly. So for these types of carousel posts, um, a lot of them I find either on Instagram directly from my competitors, or this little trick, which is finding them on Twitter, which is, in my opinion, the best place to find inspiration for carousel posts, particularly because the formatting on Twitter is very similar to the carousel posts you see on my page. For example, you have your little headline, and then you have the text, and you have your image or a video, which I prefer a video. Um, and the reason these posts perform so well on Instagram is because there is so much content that, for your average guy, if you were to spend, most videos are around like maybe 30 seconds to a minute. But on this, if you would literally read every single sentence, watch every single video, like you would be probably 5 minutes just on this one post. And then
Mm,
it's like, oh, there's so much value in here, let me save it. And then maybe in the end there is a comment automation, which we'll get into, I'm sure,
mhm.
where you can see a comment LLM, and then I'll send you the link. So when people comment, engagement goes up, the post goes even more viral. So these carousel posts are super powerful. And as I mentioned, I get a lot of inspiration. Pretty much all of my inspiration comes from Twitter. I take the most viral posts from Twitter and repurpose them onto Instagram. Of course, I switch them up. I don't just copy
Mhm,
and paste everything. Of
mhm.
course, I switch them up. Maybe I even combine some different tweets. Maybe I combine one slide from one tweet, one slide from another tweet, put them together, and it's unique now. So it's the carousel posts are, yeah, they're crushing for me, especially
This is
this year 2024.
This is incredible. And you even bring that up. I want to chat with you about something after this
Yeah,
regarding,
yeah,
I think, like a system that you could build around this. That would be
yeah,
like incredible. And just to be
yeah,
clear, in terms of like the graphics, things like that, I'm sure there's times where you go and grab some graphics, but typically
of course.
you can go as far as grab those graphics, change the wording, right? And then basically maybe in Canva you kind of reformat it so it's branded as as more your style, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So I have a couple of templates I have set up in Canva, which I created. So it's a very seamless process. You just take the videos, take the text, you import it into Canva. So I always like to just import everything into Canva, and then I look at it and see, okay, I read every single line. Could I write this text so it's a bit more smooth? Could I format the text so it's easier to read? Can I change the hook to make the hook even better?
Well,
Every single thing I analyze, and I look at every single thing and try and improve it. And that's not only the best way to learn how to actually become better at content creation, but it's also the best way to create unique content that resonates with your audience. So yeah, it's a pretty simple process now once you get it to work, which takes time, of course.
yeah, no, of course. So kind of just, I want to dive into the ManyChat stuff. We actually covered this in the last live stream. We had Brad on and he's
Yeah.
he's using OSSA. Basically, he's using OSSA, but also carousel posts, but other posts to like automate obviously like comments and stuff like that. And then he's doing the same exact strategy, which is very common right now, which is have a newsletter, monetize the newsletter, collect the attention, and then direct the attention maybe towards a course, which we can dive into kind of what you're working on in a little bit here, or
Yeah.
there's tools to actually monetize an audience, right? At the end of the day, this is a big thing that I learned when I first started creating content, and a big mistake I made, which is that when I first started, I didn't really have a place to collect emails or get people in a group, and I grew millions of followers, but their attention was spread across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and this is like a really big thing. I don't want to get on too much of a tangent here, but
Mhm.
one thing that you definitely want to consider if you're starting a brand is that if your audience is only on the platforms, then you are always competing for even though they're following you, they're a swipe away from losing attention, right? If you can get their attention off the platform to something like what Anthony's doing, which is a newsletter, right? Maybe it's a school community, it's a group, then now you have essentially not only there's two things to this. One, it's like obviously it's better to have them in a group, but really what it is like if you can introduce someone to a newsletter or a school community, then they are associating that individual platform, especially if it's the first time they've been on that platform with you. So in a way, like they're on that platform because of you and no one else, right? So it's like you kind of get to take the leverage of a different platform like a school. And it's like especially if you get them to like download Discord or school or whatever it is, and it's like now they're literally there just for you. So if that becomes a part of their routine, now it's like when they have their attention on said thing, it's like it's only for you. And the same thing goes for a newsletter, right? So Anthony, I don't know if you have anything to elaborate on that or from that.
I like what you mentioned, that the people, they get associated with you when you bring them into a newsletter, and that's something I think a lot of beginner creators, they make the mistake of not actually branding themselves properly, which of course I made the same mistake in the beginning. Like as you said, if you scroll down to the beginning of my page, I had a different logo, I had a pretty different content style, like everything just looked awful
Yeah.
basically. And branding is super important to have people to associate something with you. So for example, for me, it might be the color of the page. Not a lot of people use purple, which is one of the reasons why I chose the color. So every time they see purple, they're like, oh, that's Uncover AI posting again. Or for example, every time I send a newsletter, I have a little emoji of a camera that is flashing.
Mm,
So every time they open the emails, the inbox, they're like, oh, that's the camera, that's Uncover AI who's sending an email.
brilliant.
So
Brilliant.
those small little details, they go a long way. And I think in the beginning, a lot of people make that mistake of not branding properly.
You know what? It's really interesting. I'm so happy you brought that up. And that's like such an important like nugget for anyone who heard that. Like in embroider that in your brain, because essentially it's crazy because I literally made a post about this. It's going out in a couple days for the OSSA channels, and it talks about pattern recognition. And that's literally what you're talking about. It's
Yeah,
that what's really interesting is people think on social media, it goes right into what you're saying is that you need to reinvent the wheel, right? But if you think about how we are as human beings, we actually don't like things that are new. We like things that are very familiar, right? There's this
yeah,
familiarity, right? And it's hard to explain. And I make the example of like the Marvel movies, right?
yeah,
When there's a Marvel commercial, right? You know it's a Marvel commercial right off the jump, just off the vibe of it. It's just something you can't even explain it, right? And that is like the pattern recognition. And that's why they're one of the, biggest companies in the world. The new movie, whatever it's called, Wolverine and Deadpool came out. And it's like right away, not even because of the costumes or whatever it is, but just the setting, right? And the approach that they have in these commercials, you just know that's Marvel, right? And it's like you can kind of look at all the biggest companies in the world, and when they have a commercial, or Apple, right? You're like, that's an Apple commercial. You don't even have to see the logo. What is
yeah.
that? Well, it's
Exactly.
essentially like over a long enough time horizon, if you consistently are creating content in a similar style, which you're doing a brilliant job of this, it's like that's another thing I'd talk about in a free course I have in the school community, which is
Mm.
that essentially what you're doing is you're trying to teach people who you are. In the beginning of creating content, it's like walking into a room like of 100 people, and the first time you walk in, you're like, hey, I'm Uncover AI. They're like, who the fuck is this guy? Right. And then you come back the next day and you're like, I'm Uncover AI. And they're like, oh, yeah, like 10 people remember you. Right. But the other nine,
Yeah.
you're like, I still don't know who that is. But if you
Mm.
keep coming back, right. And I make this example not to get too complicated, but it's like, imagine
Yeah.
you're also wearing a shirt with a Uncover AI logo, right? That's like branding. And it's like you walk back
Yeah.
into that room, and then people are like, I don't remember his name, but I remember the logo. And they're like,
Yeah.
and then you keep going back and you keep going back. And then over a long enough time horizon, 90 out of those 100 people, you just walk in, they're like, that's Anthony, right? That's
Mm.
Uncover AI, right? You don't even have to say anything. And that is
Exactly.
branding essentially in a nutshell, and
Yeah.
exactly what, Anthony's talking about,
Yeah.
which is so, so valuable that, I mean, I can't believe you've already cracked that code at 19, dude. I can't believe it. It's insane.
I appreciate it. And yeah, it's one thing I want to add as well. In once you get that consistency of, as Cole mentioned, when you start to get in those rooms, be like, hey, oh, that's Uncover AI, I remember him. Then eventually people will start want to be associated with you. So that's something I'm trying to do as well. So for example, when I feature brands on my page, I want them to be like, oh, we got featured on Uncover AI. That's insane, Just like people when they say, oh, I got featured on Forbes, Forbes 500 or whatever they call it, that's the next level of branding I want to get to, where people are like, oh, Uncover AI, that's awesome, man, that kind of stuff. So that's what
Yeah.
happens over a long enough time period, once you start getting places and growing consistently. So
Yeah. And 100%. And it's like, um, there's so much to dive into on this. I don't want to get too much into it because I want to
yeah,
talk about ManyChat.
can go
But
deep.
yeah, we could go super deep. But I think
Yeah,
that's definitely um that's like a concept that I think the largest creators in the world deploy, that, and some of them don't even realize it. It just happens,
yeah,
right? But that's literally how you build a brand on social media, is that you don't change everything, right? It's like maybe one thing before we dive into ManyChat that I'd love for
yeah,
you to talk about is what's kind of your process, high level, of actually, creating content, because I'm sure something we agree on is like you don't just post content and then post it and never look back at your carousels or videos,
no.
right? What is that process, for anyone who's creating any type of content, whether it's with OSSA, whether it's with, personal brand or carousels? How do you actually determine, how do you look back at your content? What does that process look like?
So yeah, it's extremely important to analyze every single thing when you create content. Um, and what I like to do is, of course, I look at the views mainly as the first, kind of indicator if the post performed well. Now, views doesn't necessarily have to mean a post performed well, but it's a good indicator to see. I always look at the views. I always go and look at the engagement. I look at the comments. But one thing that's extremely important, and something I've noticed a little bit of a switch now in the algorithm, which is, and the CEO of Instagram mentioned this as well, which is the shares. The shares are getting very, very important for determining if a post performed well or not. So I always look at the data. Like the data is always the most important part. I might think that a post is going to perform well, but the data suggests it doesn't. Then, you know, my emotions doesn't matter. It's it's about the data, of course. So I always look back at every single post, look at how they perform in data wise. And then from there, I can maybe see a pattern. You know, I've created content for a long time, you know, over 1,000 posts. So now I do have a kind of sense of what will perform well on my page or not. But in the beginning, you won't have that. So in the beginning, you, of course, you just experiment with a bunch of reinvented content, if you will. You know, don't reinvent the wheel, you know, that kind of stuff. But now I just look back, I see a pattern. Maybe I see a post on Twitter, for example. I'm like, okay, I know this is going to perform on my page because a similar post performed well to this one. So that's kind of the step. Look at the data and find content similar to that content that had good data, and then repurpose it. Very, very simple, not too complicated, I think.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And I'm pretty sure you've seen this before. It's that free course I put out about how to analyze and improve,
Yeah.
right? That basically just breaks down a little more complex, right? So it's a little more overwhelming, but I mean that explanation explains it just perfectly. But basically, you know, I have a full resource on how I used to kind of look at my content, and it's basically explaining exactly what, you know, Anthony just said, which is like, look at your top videos, look at the ones that didn't perform well, and then identify things about them, right? Little aspects of them. Was it because of, you know, the people who commented? What's the top comments, right? What was the video about? Why did people actually care about that? And then if you can look at the comments and say, okay, well, this one has the most likes, so there's an indication that people like that. I should make more of that, right? It's literally that simple. And that's exactly what, you know, Anthony's talking about. Now, you know, kind of pivoting here as we kind of, you know, wrap up, I want to chat a little bit about ManyChat, and because this is something that I'm using, Brad's using, you're using, all the biggest creators are using, and it's valuable, obviously, for Instagram. Yeah. So tell me about, you know, how you're leveraging ManyChat to, you know, grow your newsletter, for example. Yeah, let's chat about that.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, ManyChat is basically a automation tool. So you can automate aspects on Instagram with it. And the main way that I use it pretty much I try and use it on every single post, especially carousel post, because the main reason is to, number one, drive more opt-ins for my newsletter. Number two, to help the engagement of the post, because people comment more because, you know, you tell them to comment more. And those are the main two ones. Sometimes as well, I gather emails through ManyChat. I send free resources through ManyChat. So those are the main aspects of it. But the way I use it mainly is a so-called comment to DM automation, which Cole is showing you right now how to set up. It's very simple. You select your post, that whatever post you want to automate. So let's say, you know, if you guys saw my previous posts or the post Cole is showing right now, that post is going to be chosen for the automation. And once he clicks continue, he can choose a keyword. So whatever the keyword is, so in this case, it's AI. You can add many different keywords, free, etc. You can add as many as you want. You don't even need to add a keyword if you don't want to. You can just select all words. And it will also, you know, you can select any comment and it will be whatever someone comments, you'll still send this anyway. And then the third option is, you know, to either select a reply or just use the default ones, or have no reply at all. One little trick here I like to do is have a reply as a question, because this could lead to the viewer actually responding to that, you know, getting an extra comments. So yeah, for example, sent it over, did you get it? So sometimes there might be, yes, thank you. That's an extra comment, which helps in the algorithm, of course.
Damn, bro, you're spitting some fire over here. Keep it up. Just keep going, dude.
I'm trying. So
that's awesome.
Once Cole saves it, you can now select a message that is going to be sent out pretty much instantly to the person who comments. And the way I like to use this is either to have them come to my newsletter, be like, hey, sign up to my newsletter here. Or what I like to do, especially if I talk about one specific AI tool. So if I do a brand deal, for example, I will always have the comment to send out the link to the actual brand website. This will, you know, I mean, I don't even know, maybe 10x the conversions, 10x the link clicks, like everything. It's if you still tell people to go to the link in bio, then you're missing out. This is hands down something that changed my business, my account, not only account growth, but the amount of people I got to my newsletter and the amount of clicks I got for brand deals. It's, it's a must in my opinion. If you're having creator business, it's a must. So this is the automation you see right in front of you. It's literally all you need. You don't even need to dive any deeper into this. You can add also story triggers to trigger the same message. You can do it via DMs as well, and you can go super advanced with this. But to be honest, this is all you need to
Yeah.
get the stuff done.
I mean, I literally just set it up as you were
Yeah,
chatting.
that
3
simple.
minutes, right? And then yeah, it can obviously be more complicated as you were saying,
Yeah,
right? You can add,
definitely.
you can add more steps. You can classify people in certain groups and tag them. You can integrate with tools like make.com, Zapier, even your
Yeah,
newsletter, I assume.
yeah,
So yeah, there's
probably.
a lot you can do, but even this, right? It's like the value in ManyChat is not
Yeah,
just capturing the leads, but it's also getting more engagement. Like one,
yeah,
yeah,
100%.
yeah, and then AI Gordon asked, "What's the name of the tool?" So this is called ManyChat, and then
Yeah.
someone asked, "What service are you guys recommending for the newsletter?" So maybe that's a better one
So
for you to answer.
yeah, it depends what your goal is with the newsletter. But if you're a beginner, I would always recommend to use Beehive, um, because they are very beginner friendly. It's very easy to monetize and it's very easy to set up. There's a bunch of other options. I haven't tried too many of them, so I can't speak of them. But I've mainly used Beehive, and to be honest, I'm not really looking back. Um, and yeah, this is specifically designed for newsletters, and not
Mhm.
for, so newsletters and email marketing is kind of different. But if your main goal is to start a newsletter, Beehive is, in my opinion, the best choice.
Yeah, I mean, we use Active Campaign for the company,
Yeah,
but that's just because we have a lot of like API integrations with different
yeah,
services. But I think like from a creator standpoint, from like a brand standpoint, like Beehive is 100% the move, and this is like what everyone
yeah,
is using from what I've heard. Because
yeah,
also you have, I mean, we don't have to dive too much into it, but I know that there's ways to monetize natively inside of Beehive,
yeah,
outside of just collecting that attention.
yeah,
So I know this
exactly.
is a lot.
It's the thing is, it's so easy to use. Like, it's extremely easy to use. That's why I always recommend it for beginners. And even if you're not a beginner and you already
Mhm,
have an audience and you want to monetize that audience, then there is a feature called Beehive Boosts. I know Brad touched on this
mhm,
last call or last live stream.
mhm,
But it's very easy because you literally just get paid for getting subs, which is something you would have done anyway. Your goal is to get more email subs. Why not get paid for it? So yeah, you can see on the website that call is at. It's very easy to set up as well. Could be difficult if you have zero subs to actually, because you have to apply for these boosts, and if you have
mhm,
like zero subs, it can be a bit difficult to get
mhm,
accepted. But Beehive has a free plan. I think it's 2,500 subs for you can get for free. They also have a 30-day free trial.
mhm,
Um, so you can get started for free if you want. I'm not sure about the other email providers like ConvertKit. I know a lot of people use as well.
mhm.
I don't know if they have that sort of free trial. I don't think so, to be honest. But yeah, I recommend Beehive 100%.
Yeah,
Not sponsored.
100%. And then someone else asks, "Are you using any tools to automate posting?" I assume you're just posting manually.
I'm posting manually. To be honest, every time I try and schedule posts, they just perform worse. To be honest,
Mm.
I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's a common thing, but I just post manually.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's definitely like a big debate between whether or not it affects engagement. I think it's
Yeah,
like it's so platform and case specific. The best thing to do is just
yeah,
to split test yourself and see
yeah, 100%.
if that happens. But I think
Yeah,
generally something to understand is that certain platforms have better and worse relationships with said companies, right? So you have like Metricool, you have Sprinkler, you have Hootsuite, right? And
yeah,
depending on their relationship with the platform, right? Because not every relationship's the same, then it may actually determine your post as being like botted, right? Because they might have a bad
yeah,
relationship. So totally, I think it just depends on the platform you're using. And
yeah,
and yeah, so we're using Sprinkler for OSSA. Um, and I haven't, like, we're about to kind of start putting content out. And I even noticed when I post to X, it gets less engagement, but X is
Yeah.
like the Wild West. Like they're tracking bots left and right. So that's another conversation.
Elon's putting in work.
Yeah, for sure. And then, yeah, so, and then Gordon, the tool he was chatting about for the comment automations, this is called ManyChat. So that's that right there.
Must
And
use, must use.
it's like a game changer for sure.
Yeah, 100%. It is. It changed. Yeah, I grew so much more when I used it. So yeah, it's a must in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
we're kind of wrapping up here. I guess kind of closing thoughts. I mean, thank you so much for hopping on, Anthony. It's been amazing. This has been a super valuable one, and I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future. Maybe like a deep dive into some more of the newsletter stuff, because it looks like Hosen was asking a little bit more about, and that's been like a big question that's been asked.
Yeah.
But in terms of if people kind of want to learn more from you, if they kind of want to understand deeper how you're doing this stuff, where can they, find some of your stuff, maybe learn from you?
Yeah, so of course you can find me on Instagram at uncover.ai. For those of you that are watching on LinkedIn, you can connect with me there as well. If you want to, chat to me one-on-one personally. And I also, have a course as well, not to, plug it too much, but I do have a course where around 4 hours, I just go through pretty much, my journey from 0 to 300K followers, how I monetize with newsletters and all of that stuff. So if you want to really dig deep and actually, dive into, how this whole kind of business model of faceless content and that kind of stuff works, I would suggest you to go there. Otherwise, the tips I've shared here today should be enough for you to get started. And yeah, you can chat to me if you want anything, more specific than that. So
yeah, no, thank you so much. And I would say, the biggest thing I always think about whenever I'm going to use a course is like, there was a lot of value shared here today. So I would say go and apply some of these concepts. And if they work, which they will, it's like you can probably assume that whatever Anthony's offering is going to also work, right? Because he's obviously, you can only dive into so much in a 30-minute live stream, right? So yeah, I mean, I fully support, what Anthony's doing and the things he's putting out, and he's obviously has results to speak for it. So yeah, thank you so much for taking some time to spit some game. We'll definitely have to do this again, over the next couple of months. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for hopping on. Everyone that's listened in, this will be recorded as well as always. So I can make sure that you have access in case you want to share it with your community. But yeah, Anthony, this has been great. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you for having me.